has made things possible for all of us, for all the fans. And we are very, very grateful for her. Without her, we wouldn't be here today to celebrate this 25th anniversary. So a very, very big applause for Görel.
All, I wouldn't be here today.
Oh, it's lovely to see you, it really is. And welcome to Roosendaal. And what do you make of all this then? Here we are, like sort of 2011. ABBA unofficially split in 1982, and they're bigger than ever.
It's absolutely unbelievable. And it's great fun to be here. I'm very happy Helga and Anita talked me into coming today.
Now, one thing I've got to get off my chest, having been a fan since 1974, and I'm sure that...
I know.
Oh, do you know what? It's amazing, actually, when you send letters through in the 70s and all that, because you didn't have email in those days, and you always replied back to me. Probably on the same envelope, probably on the same piece of paper, in red, and I asked you to ask all sorts of silly little questions, but
yes,
you always came back to me. But one of the things, actually, over the years, thank you very much, over the years, how do we pronounce your name? Because I've heard it Görel, Görel, Orel. What's the correct name?
In Swedish, it's Görel.
Görel. Hey. Now, who got it right? No, it's wonderful, actually, to have you here. And the reason why I mentioned your name there, because I could see it written on a book. I could see you maybe writing a book about all the years you've had with ABBA. Have you been asked that before?
No, I've been asked that before, and it's never going to happen. My memory isn't that good.
Really? Because my next question was, did you keep daily diaries?
No, I wouldn't say I've kept daily diaries, but in my diary in the office, I've made notes of everything that's been done, photo sessions, studio sessions, interviews, back and forth, traveling. So it's actually quite fun, and that makes my memory come back. But my memory is for me.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting. And I think sometimes, you know, it's the way to go, definitely.
And sometimes I must say, you have a much better memory than I have.
Yeah. Let's just go back a little bit, please, to Görel Hanser. Growing up, where were you born?
I was born in a small place outside of Skövde, which is somewhere between Stockholm and Gothenburg. If you travel by train from Stockholm to Gothenburg, 2/3 down to Gothenburg, you pass this little town.
Fantastic. Was it a happy childhood?
Yes, it was a happy childhood. With my parents, my two brothers, and
what did your
friends.
parents do?
My father worked with cars, and my mother worked at home.
Mm-hmm. So then, of course, you left school, college, and saw this job advertised at Polar Music?
Yes, because I had a secretary education at the University of Stockholm, and actually I wanted to go on to be a teacher, English, history, Swedish literature maybe, but then they said you should work for a year or two. It's good with this education, so I applied for a few jobs, and then I got this one. The music publishing company wanted a secretary with good knowledge of English.
And who interviewed you?
I didn't meet Stig. I met his wife Görel. And Stig used to say that, oh, I should be lucky he hadn't met me, because then I wouldn't have been employed. I was too shy in those days.
It must have been interesting actually working with the Polar family back in sort of 69, 70 with Bjorn and Benny as songwriters, and of course then they released their album Lykke. Mm. Did you get involved in all the promotions on that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I did, but it was different in those days. It wasn't this same kind of promotion at all. It was much smaller, and they were not known in those days. And there was a very good thing with Stig and with Gudrun, his wife. The company was small and everybody was involved in everything and everybody knew what everybody was doing. So it was really like a family. That's also a very good way of learning the business.
It is, isn't it? That's right. And did that sort of transpire maybe when you were not working? Did you socialise a lot?
I think we started to do that in the middle of the 70s, after a couple of years. Yes, with Stig, Gudrun, Marie and Lasse, yes, they were like my family when I moved to Stockholm, absolutely.
Because one of the questions that's often sort of raised is the fact that when ABBA became huge, that a lot of the artists that were working with Polar at the time as well sort of felt a little bit let down, the fact that they didn't have the sort of level of concentration that they probably should have had. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. Maybe it's true, maybe that's the way. I can understand if that was the way they felt, but not in reality. And we didn't have that many artists then. It was Stig Anderson, it was Ted Gärdestad, Hootenanny Singers weren't there anymore. But I can understand their feeling because everybody's eyes were on ABBA and the life they were having and the activities they had.
Yeah, because I suppose when you started there in 1969, you saw them as, you know, a sort of two couples. Could you sort of see something sparkling there, that maybe that there could be, that there could be something out of the four of them recording together?
It would have been easy to say, of course. But no, because when you're in the middle of it, you don't think that. They were very talented, they wrote lovely songs, and everybody was working very hard. I mean, even during the most successful years, you didn't think of... I don't think you really realized what you were part of, not until later on afterwards. Because you were there, you were doing your job, doing it as good as you could, and then another number one. Yes, for the first 3 or 4 number ones around the world, we had champagne, but then we didn't have time anymore. maybe it was good for us. I mean, of course, we all enjoyed it and were proud and happy, but it was our job, and we had a lot of fun. It's hard to understand what is happening all around the world when you're in the middle of it.
Yes, yes. Now that's a good point that you made. I think, you know, quite often you're caught up in the day-to-day of running the office and everything and keeping everything sort of, you know, tight. It's not until sometimes you look back on reflection and then you suddenly realise what sort of, you know, sort of went on.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Because when I look back sometimes, I wish I could have sort of stopped myself and left the office and just looked from the outside. What are we doing? What are we part of? To feel that very special feeling, which I can feel today when you think about what happened during all those years.
Yeah, and then we move ahead to sort of 1973 and Ring Ring. That must have been an exciting time when the group were entered into the Swedish heats.
Absolutely, but still, it was sort of going on. They were good. They had a fantastic talent, and
disappointment when they didn't get through.
I would say yes to start with, but knowing what happened the next year, I think it was a good training.
Yes, yeah.
For what happened in '74.
Yes, definitely. And of course, '74. We all know what happened in Brighton with Waterloo. If I mentioned that one word to you, Waterloo, what would it sort of conjure up to you?
Hard work.
Because you weren't in Brighton, were you, for the final?
No, I wasn't actually, because we couldn't go, all of us, and Rutger's wife, Anke, had been promised to go, so she was working at the office with us. So she went, and we stayed home, which was good, because on the Sunday, the day after, we could all meet in the office and start all the work that Stig and we had prepared in case. I mean, there were 2 plans. If we win this is the plan. If we don't win, this is the plan.
Yeah. And of course you won, and it was all systems go, wasn't it, really, hitting all those
the rest
buttons.
is history, as they
But
say.
of course Stig had everything in place, didn't he, really? So just hitting the firing buttons and away everything went. Because I think, you know, it must have been, especially in the 70s, for women to sort of rise up in their chosen profession. I mean, the fact that you started off as a secretary and then you rose to vice president of Polar, it must have been a very good tool to have when you must have got lots of sort of journalists constantly demanding, and sometimes I know in my business as well, there are still some males in the industry that don't like to accept no from a female. That must have been very apparent in the 70s, so it must have been a good tool for you to sort of say, well, hold on a minute, I am the vice president of Polar Music, and the answer is no.
And I think Stickan helped a lot, because what I was doing didn't change very much from being a secretary or personal assistant to be a vice president, but the attitude from the people around, and mostly outside of Sweden, suddenly they listened in another way just because there was another title. I never liked titles. I like what you're doing. I think that's much more important than the actual title. But maybe that's because Sweden is much more liberated, and the women are better treated than in many other countries.
Yes.
It was easier, but it helped a lot from England, from other countries.
Yes, yes. And of course, were the Swedes proud at the time that ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest?
Yes, they were, but it wasn't really the time for pop music. It was more the time for left-wing music, fighting and not earning money. So, but that had changed.
Yeah.
That has changed.
And then, of course, we move into 75, and I'm sure that your workload must have quadrupled with the mention of Australia. When you started getting all those calls coming through. That must have been a very exciting time.
That was an exciting time, yes. And we had a very good relationship with the people in Australia, with the record company, with the TV company Reg Grundy, and yes, there was a lot of fun, and we learned a lot.
Yeah. Did you get behind the planning of the tours?
I did, together with Thomas Johansson, but he did the hard work.
Yes, because you went on the 77 tour,
Yes.
didn't you? That
Part of it.
Yeah, that must have been very exciting as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, seeing all the sort of the fan frenzy down in Australia, and
yes, but you know what happens when you come to Amsterdam, or you come to Paris, or you come to London. You have the hotel, you have the arena, and you have the rehearsals, and the next morning or the next day you're off to another place. It's not like this weekend when we have time to be tourists and can experience Amsterdam and its beauty, and to feel that you are really here. It was like moving from one place to another.
yes, and of course you're
Without
constantly
really
working as well.
knowing where you were.
Yes, yes, it's hard work, isn't it? Yeah, that's the thing, really. I was just trying to picture the scene actually with Bjorn and Benny in the recording studio, and they suddenly hit another gold masterpiece. Did they sort of come into the office and say, "You've got to hear this, you've got to hear this"?
Yes, they did, but they didn't say we have another gold hit in here, because you never know. But it was exciting when they were playing the new recordings with us in the office. That was great.
Yeah. Did they sort of ever gauge your opinion? Did they look at your face to see that you liked it, or
No.
no?
I'm good at many things, but I can't sing.
Actually, while we're on the subject of songs and things like that, because it's always probably one of the questions on a lot of people's minds, if I said to you 3 ABBA songs, what would you choose? That would really...
Dancing Queen,
Yeah.
The Winner Takes It All. It's difficult.
I don't know that one.
Knowing me, knowing you.
Now, when you said it's difficult, though, I suddenly thought, there's another song in the vault somewhere.
I'm not going to answer that
No,
question.
you're not. No, we want to know what's left in those vaults. Probably not a lot. But it must have been, as I say, you know, you all worked so hard as a team, and it happens in personal lives as well when you have a situation where you've got some very good friends, and unfortunately their relationship breaks down and everything. It must have been quite sort of upsetting at the time with Bjorn and Agneta in sort of 78.
Of course, but they were both very professional when it came to the activities of ABBA. It was, of course, difficult in their personal lives, but I mean, they always been part of ABBA at that time, after the divorce, and today. So life goes on. And I think maybe it has to do with Sweden. I don't know if it's different in any other country, but I think in Sweden it's not at all unusual that you can remain friend with your former wife or husband. And they did.
Yeah, that's right, because that certainly doesn't happen in the UK at all.
You can ask Tim Rice.
Well, actually, why have I've written Elaine Page down here. Right, we'll move on. And that was a song title. Do you know what? Actually, as a fan, 1978, when I looked at the media in the UK, I really thought that ABBA were going to split up as a result of Bjorn and Jette's divorce. And you know, like you say, full credit to them. They kept their professionalism going, and you know, the band sort of carried on and probably wrote some of their better songs as well as a result of it. You know, as a sort of the lyrics, the learning process as well. But I remember actually a big highlight for me as a fan was, because I always followed the charts around the world. And it was 1977, because it was a bit later than the UK, when Dancing Queen hit #1 in the States. That must have been a great time when you got that telex through saying,
it was,
number one.
That was very, very special.
Yeah. It was a bit of a shame, I suppose, in a way, that the momentum in the States didn't probably really sort of follow through. Was it a concern of Bjorn and Benny that at the time, ABBA's success in the USA was probably a little bit limited to their success in the rest of the world?
They realized that to really break through in the States, you had to spend so much time over there. And they rather spend time in the studio recording new songs. Yeah,
because it was, as I say, they were Atlantic Records in America, and that was very much a sort of a blues and soul label. Maybe that had something to do with it. Or I know the fact that in 1978 we had a lot of promotion, didn't we, in the USA. But the songs probably didn't follow through as they could have. I think Atlantic probably slowed down a bit because Summer Night City wasn't released. And then we had UNICEF in January '79, and of course Chiquitita wasn't released till about October. So those were sort of maybe stumbling blocks, but interesting, of course, that Bjorn and Benny got their first #1 in America with the Mamma Mia soundtrack, albeit some years on, I suppose, you know. But as I say, your children, they're not children anymore, are they?
No.
How are they?
Very well. Good. Growing up.
And what are they doing now?
Kalle is working with his father on the photography side, and Carolina is studying in Malmö.
Fantastic. And do they sort of, how do they feel about the fact that their mother is so close to ABBA?
I can tell you a story. When Carolina, she was 15, she was going to a new school, and they were telling, what are your parents doing, and etc. And my father, he's a photographer, and your mother, because she wanted to be just Carolina, and then she said, my mother is working with 2 men with beards on Skeppsholmen. I think they're proud of me, and they would actually have loved to be here today. But I mean, they've been around all the time, so it's not that it's ABBA, they are friends, Björn and Benny and Agneta and Frida.
Well, they have every right to be proud of you and all you've achieved, certainly. And how do you remain so sort of calm and collective? Or what's the other side of your health?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you.
Do you get angry?
Yes.
Do you throw plates across the room?
No. I guess I am a rather calm person.
Yeah.
And
well, it's certainly sort of, as I say, throughout the years it's been so apparent, and it's very much a sort of a learning thing as well, I think, and the fact that, you know, you've remained calm and got where you have, I think is great. One of the things, of course, we can't underestimate is how important Stig was to ABBA's success. A bit like the Brian Epstein of the Beatles, no doubt about that. And of course he was a very dynamic person as well. Describe what it was like working with him. You can have as many words as you want.
To start with, it was quite tough because he was tough and I was new in Stockholm and shy, and he used to throw pens at me when I didn't answer him quick enough, and I went to the loo and had to cry. But then after a while, when he was arguing, I was arguing back, and we found sort of a very mutual way of communicating. It could sound a bit angry to other people, but it was sort of a lot of love and understanding, and we got along very well together after a while.
Yeah. But it took that a little
and
while.
He learned me a lot. He learned me a lot about the business, about taking care of fans, publishers, whoever was involved with us, and I think that's important. And he also taught me another thing which was important in our small office. It's not really important who is doing what. I mean, you can be cleaning the floor, you can be writing the contracts, you can be doing the makeup if it's a musical, or you can be a musician, or you can be the singer at the very front of the stage. But if not everybody's doing their job, there is no way you can stand there singing because you have no support around you. That means everybody's important, so that we're all in the same boat.
Yes.
To reach the goal.
Yeah.
And that's one of my sort of leading stars in my way of working, and I have that from Stig.
That's fantastic.
Thank you, Stig.
Yes.
And that means that you are also, all of you are also very important to the success that ABBA has had all through the years. Being loyal, being supportive, being protective, and buying their music. Thank you very much.
Do you think Stig would have been proud of Mamma Mia?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure. I know his children are very happy and proud.
Good. So what was it like when you finally sort of moved on and left Polar and set up on your own, and then eventually worked at Mono? How did he react to that?
I mean, in a way it was quite natural, because Björn and Benny started their own operations. Frida moved to England. Agneta wasn't really... I mean, there wasn't really any ABBA activity. And for a couple of years I still worked part-time for Polar and started my own operations. And it wasn't easy, because I felt so much loyalty and thankfulness to Stickan and to Gudrun. But I felt I wanted to do something more, not sort of, if you can say that, going back to become Stig's secretary again. So I had his support.
Yeah,
and
it was time for a change as well, wasn't it?
That was tough for a
That's
while.
the thing, yeah. So looking at your current workload there, this is your desk here. How much percentage of work would you say is ABBA related these days?
Much more than I would imagine 10 years ago. Really.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, the constant thing that's always on every journalist's lips, and because I contacted you at the beginning of the year because the BBC were hounding again, with regard, will ABBA ever reform? I bet you must be fed up with that question.
Yes. But sometimes I get surprised when journalists can call me 4 o'clock in the morning, because it's been in the English morning papers.
My goodness.
Believing that if ABBA were to reform, that should be the news in the Sun in England. Of course, that would be a professional release from the office of Polar. So how can they really believe that's the way it's going to be presented, if it had been true.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. My next question actually here is, will they reform?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh dear, interesting.
Benny had that question last Monday when we were in Helsinki for the press conference for Christina. And of course, yes. They don't see sort of the glimpse in his eye.
No, and then the next thing, it's spread around the world, isn't it? Yeah.
But I think they think it's a bit fun to say that, because it's not going to happen. But what you remember are 4 people rather young. What you have today is 4 people rather old. I think we should all keep that memory of how it was in the olden days. And apart from that, I'm too tired to go on tour again.
So if we had a huge big photo album of all your work with ABBA over the years, and we're going through all the pages here, would there be certain memories that would sort of jump out and you say, I remember that photograph, I remember that date?
Yes, I'm sure it will be.
Your 50th birthday? See, that always crops up.
Yes.
I was told to write that.
Yes.
Yeah. That must have been a special day.
It was a special day in many ways, not only because of ABBA performing or singing. Of course, it was a special day because it was my 50th birthday, and I had invited sort of my whole life, family, friends, earlier colleagues, and my new friends, and we had the last performance of Christina at Circus 2 nights before, so it was a special evening in many ways. Yeah. And then, of course, even I didn't think that ABBA would sing together. No. But they did.
Talking of singing together,
I'm not going to sing, so don't ask me.
We're going to do a duet, are we? No, I mean, never say never. Do you ever think that they will go into the recording studio to do one last song? Or...
I wouldn't mind. I would love that. But I'm not sure that all 4 of them love that.
Well, it's been really interesting this afternoon. It's been lovely having you here, and I think we all agree, you know, in terms of sort of fan support, probably we do pester you sometimes too much, but we just want to know what's happening and all that. But you've always been very generous to fans and always replied, and especially with the help of the fan club as well, as Anita and Helga have mentioned, and I've been very privileged as well to be able to get tickets to some nice sort of openings and premieres as well, like a lot of fans here, and I really, really thank you for that. So I think it's been wonderful having... Have I got it right, Görel?
Görel?
I got it right!
Yeah, it's
After all these years! Oh my goodness me.
But thank you, Vaughan, but it's also important, because I have very many greetings, lots of love from Anne-Frid, from Agneta, from Björn, from Benny, to all of you, saying that they should know, you should know, how important you all are to them, for what you've been doing, including pestering, but always being so supportive, and I would say supporting and protecting and loyal, and also I would say nearly all of you have always been very respectful, not intruding. If there is a no, there is a no, and I think it's been a mutual, very good meeting between all of you and all of them. So a big thank you and a big kiss from them.